Welcome back to Any Recapped. Thank you all so much for your support. Subscribe and like for more recaps. Today we will recap the series Spirit Chronicles. At the village, Rio takes Latifa for a walk and tells her he's going to have to leave the village soon. Latifa gets distressed, wanting to come with him, but Rio tells her she can't. He doesn't know how dangerous the rest of his journey is going to be, so he doesn't want to put her in danger. Latifa runs away in tears, saying she doesn't want to be apart from him. In the village, the elders sense wyverns flying in the direction of the village. At the wyvern cave, Reese starts stealing all the wyvern eggs, transporting them somewhere. Flying through the air, the demi-humans notice the blonde young man with the egg. They approach him, but he gets intimidated by them and escapes on the griffin. The wyverns appear, flying after him, and Sarah notices the man is flying towards their village as the wyverns are chasing him. After taking all the wyvern eggs, Reese crushes a red stone identical to the one the blonde young man swallowed, and the young man dies, falling off his griffin. In the air, Sarah summons a spirit wolf and Alma rides it through the air. Latifa is wandering through the forest. Suddenly, the egg the young man dropped falls to the ground and breaks. Lured by the egg, the biggest of the wyverns descends in front of Latifa, enraged. In the forest, the wyvern attacks Latifa, but before he manages to kill her, Alma appears and saves her. Summoning a lion spirit attacks the wyvern together with the wolf spirit, but can't defeat him. Latifa distracts the wyvern while Alma casts a spell. Latifa gets cornered, but Rio appears and saves her, taking her to safety in his arms. Powering up, Rio jumps into the air and fights the wyvern with his bare hands. As the wyvern prepares to breathe fire at him, he conjures a ball of energy, throws it into the wyvern's mouth, and kills it. Since the leader of the wyverns is defeated, the other wyverns fly away. The demi-humans find Rio and the others, surprised at how easily he defeated the head wyvern. The next morning, Latifa finally accepts that Rio is leaving. She tells him she used to be a human from Japan and reincarnated in this world after dying. Rio tells her he is the same. Later, Rio says farewell to all the villagers. Dominic gives him a mithril sword which can channel his spirit magic and a black suit of armor made from wyvern hide. The elves give him medicines and potions, while the beast people give him food and drink. Seldora gives him a space-time storage device he can use to store all those things in. Rio promises he will come to save the village if anything endangers it, and says his final goodbye to Latifa before leaving. After spending 2 weeks in the Yabuma region, Rio still hasn't found any clues about his mother and father. Arriving in a village, he finds the chief, an old woman called Yuba. When he asks her about his parents, Zen and Iam, Yuba recognizes those names. Yuba reveals she is Rio's grandmother, his father's mother. Yuba leads Rio to the graves the villagers made for his parents, and Rio pays his respects. Yuba tells him his parents had to leave the country for a reason she can't tell him yet. She invites him to live with her until she is ready to tell him, and he agrees. Yuba lives together with a girl called Ruri, who is Rio's cousin. The next day, Rio starts helping out around the house and realizes both Yuba and Ruri can use spirit magic. Ruri's friend Sayo and her brother called Shin to come over for lunch and meet Rio. After eating together, Shin takes Rio to a forest where they help a shaggy-looking hunter called Dola. Shin doesn't catch anything, but Rio turns out to be a natural talent at hunting, making Shin jealous. As the days pass, Rio helps out everyone in the village. One day, Yuba asks him to guard the traders from the village who are going to go sell rice at the royal capital. Suddenly, they hear Shin arguing with a rude man called Gon, the son of the head of a neighboring village. Gon wants to stay at Yuba's house while his cart for transporting trade goods to the royal capital is getting repaired. Gon arrogantly says he will one day get married to Ruri since she is the only heir of the village chief, and Shin gets angry, attacking him. However, Gon overwhelms him and ends up choking him. Yuba appears, breaking up the fight. She disregards the incident as a misunderstanding and lets Gon stay at a guest house, doesn't allow him to leave it. Yuba lets Sayo stay at her house so she will be safe from Gon. That night, Rio gives Ruri a protective amulet to put in the corner of her room. In the guest hut, Gon and his 2 lackeys talk. It turns out they purposely broke the cart so they can stay at the village, planning something nefarious. The next morning, a kind-looking tax examiner called Hayat travels to the village together with 2 helpers. He examines the village's crops and eats at Yuba's house. That night, Gon invades Ruri and Sayo's room. Before he can do anything, Rio enters, having sensed his presence because of the protective amulet in the room. Because Gon reminds him of the man who killed his mother, he brutally beats him, nearly killing him. Hayat appears and stops him. As he heals Gon, he says he will take him to a prison camp the next day. Rio leaves them, thinking how he forgot his desire for revenge because of Haruto's personality which influenced him. He's thinking about how Rio is capable of killing, but Haruto suppressed him. The next day, Rio apologizes for his behavior last night, but everyone thanks him for saving the girls. Hayek prepares to leave the village, taking Gon and his thugs with him. Before he leaves, Yuba gives him a letter from his father, Lord Guki. At the same time, Rio, Shin, Seo, and Dola depart to the royal capital to sell their rice. After a few days, they arrive at the capital. They find a place to stay, and Dola takes Rio and Shin with him to a restaurant. As they leave the place, Shin thanks Rio for saving his sister from Gon the other night. Later, Rio goes to the market with Seo, offering to buy her something because she took care of him. She picks out a hair decoration and Rio buys it for her. Seo realizes she's in love with him. In a large house, Hayek gives Guki, his father, Yuba's letter. Reading the letter, Goki is surprised. Finding Rio, he invites him into his house. It turns out Guki and his wife Kyoko were once attendants of Rio's mother, who was called Ayam. Ayam was from the royal family of the kingdom of Karasuki. 20 years earlier, Karasuki Kingdom was at war with Rokurin Kingdom. Zen, Rio's father, rose through the ranks as a soldier and one day had a practice match against Guki. Guki, convinced of Zen's strength, recommended he become a guard of the Karasuki royal family, which is how Zen met Ayam. At that time, Karasuki and Rokurin signed a peace agreement. At the signing ceremony, the Prince of Rokurin took a liking to Ayam and ordered his attendant to kidnap her. However, before the attendant could do it, Zen stopped him, killing him by accident. Afterward, the Prince of Rokurin demanded Zen's execution and Ayam's hand in marriage. Because of this, Zen and Ayam ran away together. Finishing his story, Goki invites Rio to meet his grandparents, the current king and queen of Karasuki. The next day, Rio introduces himself to King Homura and Queen Shizuku, who was Ayam's parents. He tells them Ayam was killed by a red-haired man called Lucius, who had worked with his father as an adventurer. He helped them a lot after Zen died, but one day Lucius suddenly attacked Rio and forced him to drink a mysterious potion. When Ayam saw this, Lucius killed her. After that happened, Rio woke up in the slums where he lived as an orphan until he found Flora. Rio says he will definitely avenge his mother one day, and his grandfather says he won't stop him. However, he wants to test Rio's strength by making him spar with Guki, Karasuki Kingdom's strongest warrior. In the courtyard, Rio and Guki start their sparring match. They are evenly matched until Guki gets serious. He envelops his sword in magic energy and fires off a flying sword slash at Rio. Finally, Rio manages to disperse the attack with a water spell and wins in the end. Impressing him, Homura concludes Rio doesn't need any additional training. That night, Rio returns to the village and tells Ruri he is her cousin and a prince of Karasuki Kingdom. He tells Ruri and Yuba he plans to leave the village in a year. He wants to return to the land where he grew up, but promises he will visit them again someday. The days pass, and Rio continues helping out the villagers with hunting, farming, and everything else. While they are planting rice, Rio mentions to Seo that he will leave on a journey soon. Seo starts crying and tries to hide it, when Ruri interrupts them and everyone gets back to work. 6 months pass, during which Seo practices her spirit arts every day. One day, Seo approaches Rio and takes him into the forest to talk to him. She confesses her love for him, but Rio says he can't be with her because he has to leave the village. Seo tells him she has been working hard training so she can go with him, but he doesn't yield, apologizing to her once again and leaving her in tears. One day, after saying goodbye to all the villagers, Rio prepares to set out. As he departs, Seo waits for him at the exit from the village. She has accepted his leaving and they bid farewell to each other, promising to meet again someday. Stopping at the demi-human village, Rio reunites with Latifa and the others. Rio decides to stay in the village for a few months. He gets the idea to build a house and carry it in his space-time storage device, and Dominic tells him he will build it for him. One morning, Rio wakes up with a mysterious, naked, pink-haired girl sleeping with him. She tells him she is a spirit who made a contract with him, but doesn't remember how. She doesn't know how she separated herself from Rio and even doesn't know her own name. She only knows she exists for Rio, who he calls Haruto, talking telepathically to him. She says she knows everything about him but promises not to tell anyone. Since she doesn't remember her name, she asks Rio to give her one. Creating a dress for herself with spirit magic, she reminds Rio of Maharu, his childhood friend. Suddenly, he comes up with the name Asia, which means beautiful springtime in the language of the beast people, and the girl accepts it. Rio takes Asia to Dryas, but she doesn't recognize Asia and doesn't know why she would lose her memories. Asia reveals she is proficient with spirit arts of every element, which is very rare. In order to understand Asia's power, Rio fights her. Rio fights at his best, but Asia is incredibly fast and manages to copy every one of his techniques, proving them to be equally strong. They end the fight and Dryas decides to teach Asia everything about spirits. The days pass and Asia gets used to living in the village. One day, Dominic finishes building Rio's house and Rio declares he is going to leave the village the day after tomorrow. 2 days later, Ursula gives Rio a teleportation crystal before he leaves. With it, Rio can come back to the village whenever he wants. Seldora gives him an earring that allows him to change the color of his hair so he can disguise himself. Wishing everyone farewell, Rio departs together with Aisha. Before returning to the land where he grew up, he wants to visit Celia. Arriving in the capital of Beltram Kingdom, Rio changes his hair color and goes to a bakery, where he finds out a noble's wedding parade is tomorrow. That night, Rio and Aisha stealthily infiltrate the Royal Academy until they reach Celia's research lab. However, they find the lab completely empty. As Aisha hypnotizes one of the other teachers in the building, Rio finds out from him that Celia is marrying Charles, the royal guard from the House of Arbor. He finds out the kingdom of Beltram suffered a crushing defeat by the Proxia Empire. Charles managed to start peace negotiations with the Proxia Empire since the royal family of Beltram lost power. After the Huguenot family fled the capital, the House of Arbor arranged a political marriage with the House of Clare to gain more power. The House of Clare is the house Celia belongs to. Leaving the academy, Rio decides to see Celia before her wedding ceremony and asks her if she really wants to marry Charles. In her room, Celia is drinking tea. She is prepared to be Charles' property so the House of Clare survives. She wishes she could have seen Rio one more time, still having feelings for him. Stealthily infiltrating the building, Rio enters her room. Celia is shocked to see Rio after 4 years. Rio asks her if she really wants to marry Charles and Celia won't admit she doesn't. Rio notices something is wrong, but Celia sends him away, saying she doesn't want him to get caught. After he leaves, she starts crying. The next day, everyone is preparing for the wedding. Charles introduces Celia to his other 6 wives, who tell her she's going to be the lowest in rank among them. When Princess Christina arrives, she asks to speak alone with Celia. She congratulates Celia on her wedding. When Duke Huguenot fled the kingdom, he kidnapped Flora, making the royal family lose respect and power. Christina feels responsible for Celia's forced wedding because of it. She swears to do everything in her power to help Celia if the chance arises. When the wedding procession begins, a great number of townspeople gather around it. Among the people, Rio and Aisha are hiding. The wedding coach stops and Celia prepares to get off, but Rio starts running toward her, causing a commotion. Running and beating every guard in his way, Rio manages to reach the coach. Running over to Charles, he punches him and makes him faint. Suddenly, Rio takes out a knife and holds it to Celia's neck. While the people around them are outraged, Rio telepathically talks to Celia. He asks her to keep quiet for a while because this is all an act. Telling her he knows she isn't getting married voluntarily, he asks her again if she wants to go through with it. He tells her he can end this wedding if she wants him to and take her far away with him. Hearing this, Celia finally embraces her true feelings and says she wants to go with him. Immediately, Rio tells Charles he will kidnap his wife, taking her into his arms and running away. While the guards pursue him, he fights them off. Running on rooftops while carrying Celia and getting chased by Griffin riders, Rio jumps down into a dark alley and gives Celia to Aisha. While he serves as a decoy, the 2 girls are going to escape the royal capital together and meet up with him later. Rio turns back and starts fighting the guards, doing his best not to kill anyone. Among the guards, Alfred, the strongest man in the kingdom, emerges. Drawing a huge sword, he clashes with Rio. They fight fiercely and Rio notices Alfred's sword is coated in magic. Rio still manages to dodge and block his attacks. Casting a spell on his sword, Alfred powers it up and unleashes an incredibly powerful attack. Afterward, he can't see Rio anymore and orders the guards to look for him. A thunderstorm starts brewing while Rio reunites with Aisha and Celia. Celia thanks him for saving her from her marriage. Suddenly, huge sources of magical light start appearing all over the land. Aisha senses something is wrong, begging Rio to help someone in need. Somewhere else, a boy and 2 girls find themselves lost. They get kidnapped and taken to another world by a group of bandits until Rio appears and saves them. To Rio's surprise, one of the 3 people turns out to be Miharu, but she doesn't recognize him at all. Thank you so much for staying till the end. If you like this video, please subscribe and leave a like. See you in the next video. Bye.